It tells you what's going to happen. Anyway, bonjour, I know busy again. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to introduce myself. Wapshkim, and this is it, Mr. Temnis, Bezuni Dodem, Planning Donji, Nishnabeni. I just wanted to also to share with you is Renee McGurry. Renee, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Renee McGurry. I'm the Earth Lodge Development Helper. And this is the first of 7 sessions that we're going to have here. So feel free to join us for any of those 7 sessions. It goes till August 9th.
And speaking of which, sessions can be either pre-recorded or they can be live. This is going to be a pre-recorded. As you register, you'll receive a password and you can watch it at your own leisure. There is 7. This first one is Origins, the Anishinaabeg origin story. And the one we'll go with the next session would probably be Wene Boju. And if we'll take it from there. What we're trying to do is to share with you from the Earth Lodge Anishinaabeg history of our past. That leads to major events. To the important one this summer is our 150th of our re-entered treaty with the newcomers, 1871. So what I'm going to be doing is leading with different sessions. They're usually about 30-40 minutes. At the end of each session will be a time for Renee to ask me a few questions, as this is going to be the first time that she's going to be listening to most of the my teachings on history. Also, if it was live, then she'll be coordinating the questions and through the chat, and she'll be reading those questions out to me. But anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to be sharing it on PowerPoint, but I'll be speaking most of the time. All right, so I just go over here. So like I said, and my spirit name is Wapshkim, and this is it, Mr. Tanisnakas. But my English name, my colonial name, is Alan Sutherland, and I'm currently the Earth Lodge Keeper. What we want to do is empower our own people, their own history, Anishinaabeg history, which is very important to understand. To know where we come from is to understand what's going on around us today, but to plan for tomorrow. But you can't do that without looking back at our history, at our ancestors, our way of life until this interference that took place, which interrupted our existence, our authentic existence here on this earth. But we are now coming back. So what I want to do is teach that story from the beginning. This session is called Origins. First and foremost, the most important thing you got to understand is that as we step towards understanding the Anishinaabeg worldview, how one sees the world, that worldview is influenced by your environment. It's influenced by your family, your community, your nation. It is influenced by your history, how you walk through this life. It's influenced by your ancestors. Even when they move on, they're still influencing us in the spiritual world. So its history is to recognize that Anishinaabe are strong people. Despite the severity of the many issues of our individuals, families, communities, and our nation face, the Anishinaabe are demonstrating their resiliency, their reemergence to equal standings within the Canadian society. However, many challenges still exist today. The shared history between Indigenous peoples and European settlers is one of cultural disruption. Missed opportunities. Generations of Indigenous peoples experience profound, unsought, irreversible changes that have targeted their cultural identity as a result of colonization. Many Indigenous people are working towards changing the cycles of abuse, social and economic disruption, the loss of languages, and through the Canadian assimilation that created this generation's loss of their identity, their culture and well-being, and of course their nationhood. The Anishinaabe are building bridges of reconciliation and working to create educational communities where their children are respected, have pride in their cultures, and their cultures are respected and reflected and appreciated in the Canadian society. They are rebuilding their nations and hope to right the relations of the past. I always like to start off here. I usually engage people, I do it in front of them. They're sitting in a circle. And the best way to engage people is to tell a story. And I usually tell the story about, when I interact growing up in my community of Scouting, I was in that environment and I understood this profound teaching that when I look up, I see the grandfather, and grandfather gives us life. And that's my line of questions. Does your grandfather give you life? Most people don't understand because I don't fully give them the answer yet. And some will say nothing or it's not their head. Then I says, well, does your grandmother give you life? Then they get involved. They start, yeah, my grandmother gave me life. They start getting engaged. Now, does your mother give you life? Oh, that's a given. Of course, mother gives us life. Well, then your father gives you life. Yes, they all agree. Everybody's all agree. That's good. Now I make it harder. I usually say, does your brother give you life? And then there's silence. Oh, okay. Does your sister give you life? Then you got a few might says, yeah, well, I'm really close to my sister and such. What I'm trying to get at when I do this is to get people engaged in a story. Then I started talking about when we look to the sun, we say grandfather's son, Kisis. That is our grandfather. And does the sun give us life? And now everybody's starting to get it. Yes. How? And then they give an answer like the energy that comes from the sun that gives us life. Then I says, how does the next one give us life? How does grandmother give us life? Then I have to remind them where I'm going with this. See, when we look to the moon, we say grandmother. Oh, well, how does grandmother give you life? And then people have to think about it because it's just a nice, pretty, good-looking thing out in the sky at nighttime or at dawn and such. Then I remind them that if it wasn't for the moon, the waters will not be washed, will not be cleansed, will not be clean because it's the ebb and flow of the tides that the moon influenced the air, the waters. Also, it gives us an indicator of time. There are 13 moons that we respect that guides us what we need to do in any given year. Also, moon cycles give us those weeks. But together, both the moon and the sun gives us days, nights, gives us time. And I said, who is the father in this story? And many don't get this yet. Oh, I said, when I look around me, I see all of life. But when I look really up, I see the sky. I say, that's Father's sky. How does the sky give us life? And usually I ask them to take a deep breath. That's right, the breath of life. Where is it? All around us. Where does it come from? And I said it comes from the trees, the plants, and vegetation. But that air, that oxygen is all around us, is in the sky. So it's also what is life-giving, is the rain that comes in the spring that brings us new life. There's also the protection of the ozone layer, that our Father is a protector. We also see the temperament of our Father and with storms and thunder and such. But we also see the beauty of a rainbow or the northern lights. So if I said grandmother moon, grandfather sun, father sky, then everybody got it. The next one, Mother Earth. And I don't spend a lot of time here because Mother Earth gives us everything. Now, the one they had a hard time on was who was the brothers and sisters in the story. And I usually get into it right away and says, well, it's all of life around us. Are we the only life forms? We have other beings all around us. And that's the animals, that's the plants, brother bear, sister tree, and such. But there's so many around us. So I usually said this is what we are. This is who we are living on this planet. But when I talk about these things, I'm talking about spirit. And spirit is everything. All of creation, all of spirit, everything is made from spirit. Well, to make it easier for other people to understand, because maybe they got their education in the education system in schools, where scientists say that everything is energy. But really, when you come right down to it, you are pure and simply, you're made of the same stuff as the moon, the stars. You're a walking, talking bundle of intellectual energy. Everything's intellectual. Everything has a purpose and a reason, and it has a form. And it's made up of cells, which are made of atoms, which are made of the subatomic particles. And when you really get right down to it, they say it's energy. But really, energy is a mystery, because even there's a movement within the energy that's unpredictable. You can't predict it. There's this particle that keeps coming in, keeps going out at its different times, doesn't come at all. It's there all of a sudden. And they gave this name, scientists give this name, its original name as happens to be that goddamn particle. Because they don't have no answers. So it still end up being a mystery. But for the Anishinaabe people, it's always been a mystery, the great mystery of it all. But when we speak about it, we say that everything's energy. The leaves, the raindrop, clouds, the stars, the moon, ourselves, this table that takes up a form. Everything is energy. And this is where the story begins. Energy follows thought. It's a movement. It's moving. Energy is frequency. It's sound. It's constant moving. It fills in everything. It's always filling in everything. Even in our language, which is a difficult word for me to speak, and I can get into that later on. I know the concepts. I know the teachings, and it's called a power of thought. That's in our language, the power of thinking, a power of thought. That's where our origin stories really begin. It started off with thought, started off with a dream, actually. Now, there are many descriptions of this, many names. Some call it the Great Shaker because it sounds like all of creation is a vibration, the sound continues on, the sound of the universe continues on. Others say it's a great mystery. But we gave it a name. We gave it Manitou. Manitou is the name of spirit, the name of everything. It comes from an emptiness. It comes into sound, it comes into movement, which leads to boom, life. And that's where the story begins, this Anishinaabe story, this Anishinaabe creation story. So it just started with emptiness, a void or nothing, until there was a stirring, a movement, until there was a thought. And from that thought became awareness. And from that thought and awareness became sound and frequency. And there's such movement was going on. It happened instantly. Then there was this awareness of being and awareness of that. The whole life spread. Creation happened. And it's been going on ever since. And when I looked at science, they're always trying to figure things out. They sent out the Hubble craft to go out and take pictures of the universe. Beautiful pictures come back. And then when they reverse, when they look for a pattern and they reverse those patterns of creation, and it goes back to a singularity, but it's a spiral. It goes back to a spiral and a singularity. And then life happened. Now, where we ended up being in our solar system, our universe, our solar system, is that we're like 3/4 out. So we're kind of like from the beginning. But universe and cosmos expand. It's still expanding to this day. And some will call it the chaos theory because when life happens, it's chaos. There's movement, we bump into each other, asteroid collides. There's new beginnings and there's endings, but it continues on. Now, one of those creation is Manitou Gitigan, is also known as Manitou Ekwe, the spirit woman. There's our earth, our mother. Aki is another way of saying it. Aki is that essence of life is Manitou Ekwe, but it's most commonly known as Earth, Gaia, Terra, many names, different languages to describe. But for us, they're initially known as grandfathers or grandmothers because they are part of creation. They were there from the beginning. So that was long ago. But as we have intimacy with our mother creation, we more call her now more of a mother than a grandmother. Now, creation stories inform people of the beginning of the physical realm of existence. And they're all truthful. There are many, many different stories describing the same thing, I think. Some may be altogether not the same, but to me, they're all truthful. They're all right. Now, the Anishinaabe creation story, according to the Anishinaabe tradition, the universe was created into 4 orders. The first order of creation involved the emergence, and we're talking about our world, is the emergence of water, rock, fire, and wind. The Anishinaabe considered these 4 sacred elements, these 4 elements sacred, the building blocks of life, the building blocks of all creation. It is during the first order of creation that the universe and the sun and the earth and the moon are created, where rock first emerged from the great sea. The second order of creation involved the creation of trees, the plants, the vegetables, the fruits. This order brought forth all of the members of the tree world, such as the maple, the birch, and cedar trees. It also brought the medicines found in the red willow tree, the strawberries, as well as other berries and cattails, for example. There are endless. We can talk about. I might even talk about in our next session about this medicine. And the third order of creation brought the world, the 4-legged, the winged, those that fly, the swimmers, such as the bear, the eagle, the pike. It is these animal beings that will teach the humans that the knowledge about medicines and how to use them. These animal beings will also teach us about good governance, good governing practice. According to Anishinaabe tradition, it's said that these 3 orders of creation thrived and lived together for a very, very long time. In fact, there are many ages before the 4th order ever came. So I wanted to get into a little bit in depth in terms of what does our existence look like, our existence here on Earth, in this universe. Like I mentioned, is Haki, is the rocks, the mineral world. Then there is the next level, is the organic world, the water world. These are the trees, these are the plants, the water itself. And then there's the third level, where all the animals are, all our relations. Manituekwa. Then there's the spiritual realm, the upper level, where there's spirit guides and later on our ancestors, Manitus. And then there are other levels, spiritual levels, where there are masters and ascended masters and guardians and archangels and so forth. Then there are the laws that holds this universe together, all the laws that holds it all together. Time and space is nothing in a spiritual world, but in the physical world, it means a lot. So there's a lot of interpretation when it comes to time and space. But there is overwhelming, like gravity, there's quantum physics is starting to look into these laws. But this is what holds our universe together. And what created all this to hold it together is Gitchi Manitou. That's what we call that great mystery, that creation, that great Gitchi, grand, awesome. If we did ceremonies, we would describe it more as Geshe Manitou, which means more of a loving spirit, because all of creation is made of that, that energy of love, compassion, kindness, but overall that love. That's what we feel in all of everything, of all of creation. So getting back to the Anishinaabe creation story, there are many universes, there are many planets, there are many places that are already being created. Are we the only ones in the cosmos? Well, when it came to human beings that I'm going to talk about now, Gitchi Manitou looked at all this creation, it was beautiful, and was found itself lonely. I want to share this. I want to share this experience. I want to share life, all this creation. Where would I do this? It just so happened that the creator have came across this crystal blue planet and seen a sense of essence of itself and a reflection, if you will. This blue reflection, it was the source of imagination, the source of creation. I want to make children of this essence, this blue flame. Where would I do this? There was already a place that existed, this fragile little planet from a medium-sized sun, this third rock from the sun, had everything to support a human being, so that the creator can have experience through the human being, to live life through the human being. This was a good place. Had all the sacred elements of life to support life, to support the human being. That's why all of creation has this energy, this blue energy. So when we, as beings, the inner fire that we all have and are connected to everything, that energy is that blue flame, that inner fire that's internal, that never extinguished. That is our connection to it all. So this looks like a good place. Now, this is where our story differs from some that I grew up with, being a Roman Catholic, the story of Genesis and such, because all stories are accurate. All stories are truthful, but this is an Anishinaabe creation story, and it talks about 4 spirits. And there was the white, and there was the yellow, and there was the black, and then there was the red spirit. Why is that? Well, the creator can do anything. It only makes sense to create 4 because creation is about diversity. It's about having many, many, many beautiful shapes, different sizes. That's what the earth is. That's what the Manitou Beacon is. It has all these colors, different shapes and sizes. It would be awfully boring if it was only one color or one shape. So the creator wants uniqueness. He wants diversity. So why not humanity? So there are these 4 spirits that were saying, Majan, you go. I'll experience my life through you as you go through your life and all its lessons and all its joys and sorrows. And I want to experience it through you, everything. And just to know that through you, I'm going to learn the lessons of life. What you experience, I will learn along with you. So as you discover new things, I'm going to discover new things. As you discover ways to organize yourself, ways to interact with each other, ways of even having your own fellowship, I'll experience that through you. So the white one went, did not hesitate. The yellow went just as fast, followed the black, but the red one stayed. He said, why should I go experience earth? Experience Manituakwe. Why should I go? Majan, you must go. Was told 4 times by Gitche Manitou. Each time was a gift. I give you a gift in name. You're going to get this name because you're going to have an earthly journey. It'll be yours, yours alone. Others might even share your name, but it's still yours and yours alone. But this name that you're going to get identifies you as your experience throughout the ages, even beyond the earth walk. You're still going to have your identity. Majan, you must go. You're going to be part of a family. You're going to have ancestors, and they're going to guide you. They're going to give you moral codes. They're going to give you teachings and principles to help you get a legs up, a head start, as you will, to survive life, but to grow from that journey that you're going to take on. So you are going to be born with a body. Your spirit is going to be lowered, and your mother is going to create a body for you. And when you're ready, when you're coming out, you'll be taking your first breath of life, and then you experience life in all its glory. In that, you're connected by your mother, and your mother and your father have given you the DNA in your cells, the building blocks that shaped your body or how this life is going to be influenced to you. So you're influenced by your family, your community, your ancestors, your locations, your environment. So you're a part of a family. Majan, you must go. I give you a gift of purpose. Now, this purpose is that you have a gift, and you have to discover what makes you unique. Everybody's unique. Everybody's unique. It's just like snowflakes. When they study snowflakes, there's not one that are the same with another. They're all unique. So when you're going through life, you got to discover what makes you unique. What is your purpose? There's a reason why you're here. And really, it's about development. It's about growing. And along the way of growing is sometimes taking chances, sometimes making mistakes, or sometimes go through hardship. But always try to find out what is the lesson. What is the lesson to be learned here? In a way, that's a life journey. And sometimes we do call that red road journey when you go through life, your lessons. Now, Majan, you must go, my grandson. And this is a big, powerful one. And when Gitche Manitou made the human being, he made them with free will. He says, I made a co-creator. I didn't make you a subject. I didn't make you an entertaining thing to watch. I'm not going to sit on a throne and just watch you. I want to live through you. I'm going to be in you. That's where I'm going to be. I'm going to live through your experience. I'm going to live through it all, this interconnection. I want to feel. And that's what we are as human beings. We are feeling human beings. We feel. We react. We receive influence that are internal and external. And I do teach this. I do teach what makes up a human being in terms of all its layers: mind, body, spirit, its heart, emotion. It's different levels. It's influenced by DNA, your ancestors, and so forth. There's so much layers of us, but that free will is very important, as you can create. If you can imagine it, you can create it. That's the power of creation. And that's what we taught. That's what we think. That's what we learn when we look at our origin stories, that it started with thought, the power of it. And this free will says it's on you. Now, children don't have free will because they have to depend on their parents to give them the guidance so that they become strong and they can survive the world. But eventually, through passage, rituals, ceremony, both girl and boy will become, adults. And then you exercise your free will. So the greatest teachers making mistakes because you got to learn from it. That's how you really grow. But you're going to make decisions. You got to make choices: good, bad, right or wrong, good and evil. That's what humanity has, and that's been a struggle with humanity for the beginning. Was that why do we still have wars? Why do we still hurt each other? Why do we murder? Why do we, we do so many things, many bad things? And yet we're always compelled to do the right thing. That inner spirit is love, compassion. But it's still a struggle to this day. But the thing about free will is that you create the life that you want. You create the world that you want. There are those who says, how can I do that? The world is out of place. The world is too big. I can't do anything. Oh yeah, you can do something. You have the influence. You got the will of thought. You can make things happen. And when you get enough people thinking the same way, then things can really happen. But we have that power. And this is what it is to be Anishinaabe. This is what it is to be authentic, to be part of creation. And that's where our language comes in. That's our identity. That's who we are. It's the way it was described, is that from whence lowered the male the species. So again, we were lowered into to have life, spirit, to have a human body, to experience life. That is being Anishinaabe. And I already talked about the four bodies of the being, and that is spirit, that is emotional. Emotion, that's the heart. Physical, of course, your body, your mind. All this is powerful. All of this is powerful. And that's why we have teachings, we have ceremonies to teach people that, especially in the Western world, that the only coming across this now. Our people always had it. Anishinaabe people always had it through ceremonies. But for a while, that was outlawed in Canadian history. But it's coming back now. So it's no longer a great mystery like Western world sees it. But it's actually, it's just as part of you as you breathe life. All part of you. Now it's no longer a mystery. So this garden that I'm talking about, Manitou Gityegan, provides Anishinaabe of all the things that they need to survive in this life. It's substrate to Anishinaabe, Izitubi, is a term that is difficult to translate. I even have a hard time saying it. It's often, in a general term, is saying the Anishinaabe way of life. We have so many ways to describe it. This concept connotes a constellation of ideas like belonging, intimacy, a connection of a person within the wholeness of a place. So the Anishinaabe is embedded within this environment that is both physical and spiritual. So I'll get into some of those traditional teachings. When Mother Earth was young, she had a family and was very beautiful. She is called Mother because from her come all living things. Underground rivers were her veins and water is her blood. And on her surface, there was 4 sacred directions. There was the north, there was the south, there was the east, there was the west. And if you want to do the traditional way ceremony, you start from the east and you follow the sun until the sun goes down, and then you hit a circle and you start again. So Gichin Manitou, the creator, took 4 parts of Mother Earth, took the earth itself, the land, the earth itself, with the wind and with the fire and water, use a sacred shell and blew life, making a human being. Now this great spirit then lowered this human being into Mother Earth, this man to Mother Earth, to the original woman. And from her part, to live in the brotherhood with all surrounding humans. So that's how it begins. That's how life begins. But I'll go deeper. I'll give you some names. So this 4th order of creation occurred when humans were lowered to the earth. The Anishinaabe stories tell us that all through humans are born with this wonderful gift. I'm just started with the 4. I should have been starting with this one. No, I'm on the right track. Oh, forgot one slide. All right, I'll clean it up next time. But the first 3 orders was essentially that teaches us that there are what we call creation stories. This is the rock world, this is the plant world, this is the animal world. All those was well in place, those 3 orders, or the 4th order of creation came about. And that occurred when humans was lowered to the earth. Anishinaabe stories tell us that all through humans were born with this wonderful gift and ability to dream and imagine. They're also the most pitiful, most helpless. Humans are pitiful in that we are most dependent on the other 3 orders of creation. While water and plants and animals lived here on earth for a very long time without us, and they can recover and go on without us. But they continue to live without us. Humans cannot live without them, as they are our source of shelter, our source of medicines, our source of food, and our strength. Actually, we can't exist without these animals, without the plants, without the food. So, and these 3 orders of creation that provides us also gives us that protection substance we need to survive on earth. In addition, we are pitiful that our ability to dream and imagine is also our biggest burden. Not only a blessing, it's also a burden. Our ability to dream and imagine left unchecked or unmoderated through a moral code that is broad and ensures the wellness of all beings of creation, puts our very own existence at risk. It is in this way that our ability to create structures and institutions through dream and imagination, visioning it, creating it, is a paradox. Because as of today's Western society struggles with this, respecting this paradox is balancing it with moral codes, and also the good mind is fundamental in Anishinaabe teachings. It tells us that you incorporate it all, not only the physical, but the spiritual, in order to create anything. And another reason to have a moral code is that we are the only species on earth that are lying, are deceitful. And there are more things I could talk makes us pitiful. There's no wonder that human beings called out to spiritual seven grandfathers to help the pitiful human beings on their red road journey. We can't do it alone. Therefore, we ask all of creation to help. And this story is Winona and her four sons story. I struggle with this a bit because I knew Winona, I heard of her name before, and it took a long journey to get back to it. And along the way, there are those that forgot her name. But eventually I found out who is the original woman. And eventually it came because I was sending that message out. My intentions was good and pure, and the answers came later. And it was Basil Johnson's book that talks about. And then it just brought in other teachers that said, "Oh yeah, Winona." Well, many Anishinaabe know about the boy named Mene Boozhoo or Anna Bush, sometimes they call him that, who brought to us, and I have to put a T, the sacred pipe. Many do not know about the three order brothers and their gifts that they brought. Further, some know that it was Spirit of the West Wind, fathered Mene Boozhoo. Many do not know that Winona is the one who gave these four boys their life on earth. Winona's first son was named Maji Kiwis. Like all Winona's children, he was very gifted. When visiting the Bear Nation in the West, Maji Kiwis was introduced to the Wapen Belt diplomacy and also the means of making treaty. He was quite taken with its ability to record knowledge and brought it home to show his mother. This Wapen diplomacy is an ancient way of recording important events, describing the means of painting into a belt, which is used with dyed beads carved out in shells. Later on, European beads were used. Now, Wapen belts consisted of a series of icons and symbols. Knowledge where and when read together, they tell an event and they tell a story. One such important event that was recorded in these Wapen belts, was in 1764, treaty at Niagara. Now, the Anishinaabe facilitated this treaty event. At this time, the three Wapen belts was exchanged. They were the British and Western Great Lakes Confederacy belt, the 24 Nations belt, and the 2 Wapen belt. Collectively, these three Wapen belts represented Canada's first constitutional documents. And they recorded the political relationship of peace, friendship, and respect, where sharing was inherited. But this was the beginnings of what we would call our country today, Canada. It really began here because of these Wapen belts. Now, Winona gave birth to 2 sons, Pakawis and Chibayawis Boozhoo. Now, Pakawis brought the gift of drama and dance and entertainment, while Chibayawis invented musical instruments such as the drum, the flute, and the rattle. Now, in Anishinaabe tradition, it's appreciated that knowledge is more than what people are able to articulate or collect. Knowledge is also about what one feels or one does in practice of what they learn. Through respecting and practicing these 4 gifts, the Anishinaabe assured knowledge is holistic and embodied, lived and felt. Once knowledge is embodied and felt, rather than simply understand it intellectually, people are able to rely on it in times of joy and sorrow and grief. In this way, our knowledge system is medicine to our soul. Life is about the lessons. While it's important that we value these 4 sons, their gifts, and who their father was, there is also a need to respect that it was woman, Winona, who gave them the human form and life on earth. So I'll just quickly talk about the one gift that Wene Boozhoo have given us as a pagan. That's the gift of pipe. The reason why I'll do the Wene Boozhoo stories next session, but I'll just talk about his gift. And that was appreciation of life, the gifts of life. I did a pipe ceremony this morning, and it's basically putting yourself and your intentions up front. You know, you do your smudge, you've got your intentions, you're getting your tobacco ready, you're getting your intentions. But really, when you put the pipe together, there's teachings to that. It recognizes the four orders of creation, because the pipe itself, the rock, the bowl. Then you got the stem. The stem is the tree world. There's also tobacco. You got tobacco as a sama, the plant world. And then you got animal. Animals is part of the pipe, because you can decorate it and put feathers or leather on it. But it's also the human being that blows life into it, and all the elements are there when you do this, because you got the mineral world, you got the rock, you got the earth there, and then you got the wind that blows into the pipe. You got also the you're not only blowing into it, but you're providing moisture in the pipe itself. And then of course it's in the fire, lighting it up, the fire. So all those four elements are there. Now, this is the way to communicate to all of creation. And we started with Gitche Manitou, the creator of all there is. Thank you for giving me this life. Then you say, I'm here, I'm with Manitou Ekwa, Imama Ekwa. You're gonna point to the ground or touch the ground. But you're also gonna be thankful for all the direction on this earth. So you think about Wabananga East. You also could think about teaching as you do this. In the animal world, we say Miigwech Mishomis Nukamis, grandfathers, grandmothers. And there's also the saying about being pitiful. Two-legged is pitiful. They would need to be looked after. We have to teach them, feed them, guide them. They would destroy themselves without us. They have the power of the creator, but they will not know how to use it. So they're just a reminder. And that's the teaching of today. What's going on around us as man destroys more species. There's a debate on is Mother Earth trying to recover, sending out these illnesses. So there is a debate going on right now about that. So you look to the east and you be thankful for the lessons to learn in that direction. And then you think, Ziwagan on the way to the south, Miigwech Michumis, grandfathers, grandmothers again. It is over here that you think about all the plants like tobacco, sema, and all the plants that are there for you, for your medicines, for your healing. Then you go to the east, the west. You think about the teaching of the earth itself, the mineral world, but the earth itself, the land. And you're grateful for that. You think about the gifts that come from there, the tree world. They are medicines too, but the shelter they provide us. And you know what? Their roots run deep, and they are connected to the spiritual world. And if you are having a hard time releasing your heart, then you can give yourself, embrace a tree and just cry it out, it'll absorb, it'll go where it needs to go. Is it going to be the earth? It's going to be the spiritual world. And then, of course, you look up Jesus, you look up in the sky, you look at it all around us and saying, I'm connected to all this. I am the center of this. This is where Creator is inside of me, and I'm grateful for it all. So awareness of being part of Manitou Gitigan, your life right now in this garden. And what it's about is about being grateful for it. Always be grateful. If you have a hard time living all the time, at least it's easier to be grateful. So always think about your blessings, things that are going good in your life, things that you're grateful for. And then you start being happy again. So you got the world tree of life, and that tree represents us. Its roots lead to the earth, the lower level. The trunk is the growing part. It starts with very thin and it becomes strong. It also fluxes with the world. That's the middle world. That's where we are, the third plane existence. Then the branches reaches out and it grows and it grows and grows. There's all kinds of opportunities to grow. And this is the sky world. This is the upper world. As human beings, we are at the center of it all. We interact with many of these worlds. We're at the center of it all. So in return for this abundance of gifts that was provided to the Anishinaabe, the Creator also placed a moral, lack for a better word, it's English, custodial, with responsibility upon the Anishinaabe that calls the principles. Again, this is a hard word, but it basically encompasses that responsibility. Communicates that we are the keepers of those gifts. We, the Anishinaabe, are responsible for these gifts. That is why on this side of the world, it has been untouched for the longest time until new people came over from their old world and they were starting fresh. They took over, but they didn't take over our responsibilities. So this means that the idea of gifts is given for the survival of the Anishinaabe, as well as the moral responsibility to the people that bear to the Creator. That is our gift. That is our promise that the Creator will look after our garden, not just North America, all of it. The way in which Anishinaabe know that they are taking care of the Creator's garden is to being aware of the consequences of their actions on others. This requires establishing a relationship with all beings in the garden, all religious groups, all peoples, all the animals, all of God's creatures. Being aware of that mistreating any of them can lead to unwelcome incidents such as illness, misfortunes in one's own life path. In a way, you will see this in ceremonies, but when people work with energy, they call it energy medicine, but it's spirit medicine. Everything's spirit. So we are mindful that there is a strong medicine beneath us. That's the earth medicine. There's also us together collectively. How can we make us strong? How can we get better? How can we support each other? But then there's that medicine that's above us, all those levels, all those layers. Don't ignore that just because you don't understand it. Learn about it. Anyway, my friends, this is my first session. Miigwech, Nanaway Maganak, all my relations. I think Renee might have some questions for me. Do you have any questions?
Unmute. Yeah. You know what? There's a couple of things I had questions about. There's probably something that might take a little bit more discussion along the lines here. I've been told that you choose your parents, right, before you're born.
There are many lives. It's not just one you get. You got many. You got soul friends. You got soul family. You got soul mates, and you all can interact and take turns and become a lesson in this life. So if you had a good life in the last life, but you need to challenge. You need to challenge yourself. So you might get a challenging life in this life, or there's karma that you didn't complete your lesson and you came back to repeat it. Yeah, you had a sense when you looked down when your spirit's being lowered to that body. It already knew what was going to take place.
Okay. But I kind of question whether or not, because I've done a lot of traveling and I've been in Thailand and there's extreme poverty there. And I always wondered, like, why would you choose parents who cannot provide for you? Why would you choose parents who are abusive or neglectful? Like, why would you choose that?
There's two questions there. One is that when you look at people that are living in poverty, from a Western point of view, they says, "Oh, how can you live that way?" When really they might be happy. They don't know what you have, but
Right,
they're happy. They're living a good life. But
right.
from a Western point of view, they look impoverished. Now, getting into the second question is that, sometimes we need that challenge. This time I said, I need to look after a disabled child. I need to be committed. I might feel compelled to run away and not take on that responsibility. But that's the part of the lesson, saying I've learned how to find a blessing in this situation.
Okay, okay. That kind of reminds me of a story that somebody once shared with us who was a survivor of residential schools. There was a child that was listening to the presentation and then asked, "Well, why didn't you just leave if things were so bad?" And her response was, "Well, I didn't know that there was different lives outside that fence. I didn't know what was out there. That was normal for me. This is how I was being raised. So this was my normal environment." So that does make sense that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's part of the human program. If you're a child and you don't have your natural parents, and somebody else is filling that void, feeding you wrong information. And the one thing that was constant for those children was fear, because they were told, if you ever go past that gate, that fence, your parents will die. That's one
Right.
story that I heard. There are many
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So there was this tremendous fear of not knowing what this harsh world is all about, because nobody was there to comfort them.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other question I had was about the pipe. And this is probably what my more personal question is, that you're gifted with the pipe. Is that and that you then you become a pipe carrier? Do you need to go through a learning process before you become a pipe carrier? You know?
Well, I think we all pray. We all have different means of praying.
Yeah.
Some could be rosary, right? Some could be lighting a candle. Some will kneel down, some will stand up, some will
Right.
have tongues. There's many ways. Now, the Anishinaabe way of praying is ceremonial. And when you do ceremony, you humble yourself, you give your intention, you take your time. So it's very important to learn these things through ceremony, to be guided. Because if everybody was to pick it up, then we lose that strength of that magic, as you will, because
Yeah.
everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important to have to be guided, to know when you can pick up the pipe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the pipe itself, is that pipe made specifically for the person you're gifting it to?
Not necessarily.
No? Okay.
It could be handed down. Like a lot of pipes are usually handed down by family members.
Okay.
Others would be that you earn it. You get a gift. You go to the Sundance, and then somebody says, "I have an extra pipe, and I've been holding on to this for all this time. I know I have to give it to you." But as,
Okay.
but as you go through these, like a Sundance is basically, you can do a lot of ceremonies after that. And if you needed to, then you'll go to Minnesota, to Pipestone, and dig out your own pipe and make it, or take that rock and give somebody to carve it out for you.
Yeah.
Or you can do it. What I did was I bang on the door, it was closed, and there was a little number there I can call, and I call them out, and this person said, I'm coming. And I got my third pipe. Now, reason why I wanted to go there so bad was I needed one from Pipestone. Needed one
Oh,
for
okay.
a sweat lodge. And for
Yeah.
some reason he didn't take off that week, and he stayed behind. So anyway, I
Yeah.
got it that way. But there's many ways to get that pipe, but you have to earn it.
Yeah. I know this question doesn't apply to today, but maybe some point in the next 6 sessions is that we can talk about the different types of ceremony. I've never been to shaking tent. I'm wondering what that's all about. So I'm sure that there's people in our communities who would love to know more about the different types of ceremonies and the protocols for those. If we could cover that later on.
Well, I think the next session could be very well that, as I'm doing my neighbor Joe, I'm gonna do medicines.
Okay,
I can put in there of why do we dance? Why do we sing? Why
right.
do we use the shaker? Why do we use the drum? Why do we have the eagle feathers? Eagle.
Yeah, yeah,
I believe Marlene has a question.
yeah. Yeah, that's it for my questions. So Marlene, take over if you want.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, can hear you and see you.
Okay. So Alan, I guess just seeing as this is an engagement or a virtual teaching, I don't know if this is the place and time for this, but I'm gonna ask anyway. I struggle as a parent. I was raised Roman Catholic. I attended church with my mom and dad on Sundays. I know the rosary and all the prayers. And my daughter was born 14 years ago. I had her baptized. She went through communion, and she's at the age now where it's time for her to be confirmed. However, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and I told her that she needs to start preparing for confirmation. And my daughter's very vocal. She's very opinionated. She doesn't hold back in expressing her feelings. However, she's at that point where she's not comfortable with that. And I kind of gave her this whole spiel on what, as to what my parents told me. Once you're an adult, you can decide those things, but right now, this is what I want. Baptism and communion and confirmation. But just in the last, I'm going to be honest and say in the last 48 hours, with everything that we've learned about what happened in Kamloops, I feel that she's old enough to be able to decide. And I mean, there was always this in the back of our minds growing up. I think it was taught to us by one of the nuns that used to come out here, that if you don't do these steps, baptism, communion, and confirmation, and then marriage, like if you live in sin, you're not going to go to the good place. You're going to go to the bad place. And I guess I'm guilty of that, of trying to say that to my daughter, not recently, but in growing up, maybe around communion or whatever. But I guess I'm confused. I'm confused as a parent. I'm confused as a community member. I'm not sure. Like, I don't want to say, and I spoke to someone briefly about this before, and they said it wasn't the Roman Catholic Church that did this to the children. It was like the priests. But given what I know now about what happened and what's happened, I've read a lot. I've watched some documentaries and some movies. It would break my mom's heart if I said to her today, "Okay, we don't want to follow Roman Catholic anymore." But I guess I'm just confused, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who are confused. I don't know. I guess I'm. Yeah, and I told Destiny last night that's okay. I said, I'm not going to force you to do confirmation, but yeah, I'm at that place right now where I just don't know where we belong.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Marlene, because that's what everybody's feeling in this country. And I got to thinking about it yesterday. Anyway, I have a teaching on that from yesterday about our ancestors. But what you're describing is your journey, your struggle. And you're projecting that struggle of your journey onto your daughter. She's now has to start exercising her own free will, figure it out herself. But you're going to say, I'm not going to impose, but please listen from my point of view, that you can consider it and leave it as that.
Yeah.
This is the way it was for my parents. This is the way I feel. But that's just feeling. This is about sharing your feelings. This is fine. You're not imposing or interfering in her journey.
Mhm.
She'll have to decide if she wants to incorporate that in her life too. Like myself, I was raised Roman Catholic,
Mhm.
but I don't practice being a Roman Catholic. I believe I ascended to more of a spiritual human being. Then
Yes.
I don't depend on fellowship or going to church or going to those rituals, because those are rituals. They're all different. They're all different ceremonies in different churches, and they're all good. Now, what we're experiencing in this country is what happens from ignorance, what comes from a bad place of religion. And I know this history. I know it wholeheartedly. I studied European history. I studied the biblical history. I understand their point of view. And it started that we're not human beings, that we're incapable of going to heaven. And so they made it upon themselves. And this is the message they sent back from the days of Columbus, that you got to save these savages. So that went on a long time, and it continues on. Now, this is a message from our ancestors. When Beaujeu is a sleeping giant, he's sleeping over there, but he wasn't going to sleep forever. And I struggle with this. As were we meant to suffer as Anishinaabe? Well, you can't have it good all the time. How can you prove yourself that you're strong if you're not tested? So when Beaujeu went to sleep, says, I didn't abandon you. I says, I want you to prove yourself that you're strong. I gave you everything in life that you need to be strong. But he's waking up. He's waking up. Because as he wakes up, the other ones, there's other circles, there's other spirits, the white spirits, there's Canadians, European Canadians. They're losing power. We're the ones that are getting stronger. They're losing power. Anthropologists, scientists, they're losing power. Religions, they're losing their own people. They're losing control over their justice system, their health systems, everything. Because what's happening is that we are returning to what we are, our essence of what we are, our strength, our resiliency. And our ancestors are great protectors. They've always been with us, but they're fierce. And they sense that we're getting stronger. So this message that went out about Kamloops and everything else, I heard about all that DNA stuff and all that testing since the 80s. I knew about it. I knew about genocide for a long time. Is this the conscious awareness is finally hit home? The tremendous guilt or the tremendous pain everybody feels is the consciousness that we all feel. So rest assure you, Marlene, things like this don't happen. They're meant to be. Now,
Mhm.
what do we do with that lesson? That's the question.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I'll share with you. I won't go into detail, but I attended a traditional funeral or ceremony over the weekend for Knowledge Keeper Larry Soldier in Swan Lake, and it was my first time ever attending a ceremony like that. And I can tell you, not that I've never been comfortable in church. I mean, it's not that, but there was this, he did a pipe ceremony there and we had a traditional feast, and I've never believe it or not, I've never actually had that traditional feast, where the men serve you and the food's in the middle of the room on a blanket. And he spoke, and there was just something about that. I just felt, I don't know, like so light. So I was in a good place. And I've never really, like I said, I've never really experienced anything like that before. And he spoke about where the spirit goes from here, and he talked about the fire that they have, sunset and sun up for 4 days, and it made so much sense. And you know what, I'll tell you something. I've been to many, many, many funerals where you see families so stricken in grief, crawling on the ground, crying, going after the hearse. And this family, and I know, I feel it in my heart, I know it was ceremony that helped them. They were so strong. And I know it's from the messages that were delivered through, through that elder and through that pipe. And I felt it, I wasn't related to him, but I felt it. And it took me to a place in my mind where I know that's where I need to be. And it was just so when you say that about the strength, we have it. I totally believe that. I believe that the smoke from that pipe, it did something to the people in that room, and it's so strong. And I was at a funeral and I felt so good. I know, that doesn't, I was sad for the family, but at the same time, it eased my heart to see how strong they were. And I was telling my mom that last night. I have never been to a funeral where I've seen a family so strong. And I know that's why, because of what I experienced there.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, because that's unconditional love. There's
Yeah.
no unconditional means I don't expect that back. It's neutrality. It's non-judgmental,
Yeah.
but it's to bring comfort,
Yes.
compassion, and kindness. That is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is stricken because they don't understand what the passage to the spiritual world is about. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the end, it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just the living has to go on. But
Yes.
just to be assured that they'll never be separated.
Yes. That's the message we got. Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
By the way, this is the end of the session. This is session 1. And I'm gonna unrecord this and I'm gonna have a conversation. Okay.